Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Conversations Here and Now. It's Wednesday, 18th of November. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Donald Trump. It's what everybody's talking about, especially this morning. Donald Trump has lost control of the Republicans. Last night, the House and the Senate voted unanimously to make the Epstein files public. For months, Trump had been trying to not let that happen. He did not want the Epstein files being made public. But last night, in total repudiation of his leadership and his bullying, both the House and the Senate voted to make them public. So what I'm talking about today is that Trump no longer has control of the party the way he did when he was sworn in January. By repudiating him last night in the House and the Senate, the Republicans pointed out and showed that they're no longer scared of him. So 2025 is almost coming to an end, and 2026 will be a big year. The midterm elections will be happening in 2026. And Donald Trump will not be on the ballot. His MAGA base of supporters generally does not show up to vote when he's not on the ballot. And Donald Trump will not be on the ballot in 2028 because he's not allowed to run again. The 22nd Amendment of the United States Constitution does not allow him to run again. So legally, he cannot run again. Yes, people will say he will try this, he will try that, but that's outside of that amendment, 22nd Amendment. That amendment legally does not allow him to run again. He can do other things, such as maybe something with the Insurrection Act or something where he declares a war and pauses elections or tries something he's trying, redistricting, gerrymandering. But the fact remains he is not going to be on the ballot in 2028. And now that the Republican Party has shown as of last night that they can stand up to him, they don't want him there. He's an anchor around their necks. He's sinking them. He's horrific in the polls. The Republican Party is horrific in the polls. So he's a huge anchor around them that they want to remove. And their best chance of doing that for elections will be in 2028, if he's around at that time. Who knows? His health is not the best. Mentally, he's he's definitely slipping mentally. Go back and Google his speech to McDonald's a couple of nights ago, and you'll see how badly he's slipping mentally. So who knows if he'll be around. But if he is around in 2028, he will not be on the ballot because they themselves, the Republican Party, don't want him on the ballot. So who would be on the ballot? That's what I want to look at. There are some definite heavyweights who will be there. The biggest one, big names, JD Vance, Marco Rubio, Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson. These are among the big names. But today, I just want to look at JD Vance. He is the vice president right now. And let's talk about him a little bit. There are several substantive reasons. I put down some points. There are several substantive reasons, backed by polling, media analysis, and critics, why JD Vance is deeply unpopular to the general public. Okay? I'm not talking about necessarily about him being unpopular in the Republican Party. Yes, they may not like him, but he still stands out ahead of the other people that I've mentioned at this time. In the US, for the general public, he is very unpopular. And I'm looking at some of the reasons why he is unpopular. First reason is very low favorability ratings. Multiple polls show that Vance has deeply negative net favorability. deeply negative net favorability. For example, right after being picked as vice president, he had a -6 net rating. That's historically bad for a non-incumbent vice presidential candidate. What do vice presidents do? Right? They don't do a whole heck of a lot. They stay out of the limelight because they don't want to tread on the president's agenda. So for him to already have a net negative rating is unbelievable. According to the Washington Post, he is unusually negatively viewed compared to the past VP picks. His image is especially weak among some key demographics: educated voters, women, and independents in particular. So he's got low favorability ratings. Point number 2, controversial social views and comments. He made disparaging remarks about childless cat ladies. Everybody will remember that, childless cat ladies, regarding the Democrats, AOC, and everybody else, which many saw as demeaning to people without children. And those comments have come back to haunt him time and time again. His stances on abortion are very hardline. For example, he's opposed to exceptions for rape and incest in some of his previous statements. Right? So that does make him popular among the general public. Point number 3, he's perceived as polarizing and attack-oriented. If you've seen him speaking, you'd know that he is like an attack dog. He comes at you all barrels firing. And most people don't like that. Some commentators argue that part of Vance's strategy is to polarize, not necessarily to win over moderates, but to energize. He wants to energize the conservative base. He knows he's going to be the nominee for the Republican Party in 2028. He's most likely he is. So he wants to win over that entire, not only does he want to hold on to the mega base, but he wants to win over the rest of the conservative base. Now, whether the mega base will stay with him or not, that remains to be seen. He's been accused of political ruthlessness. For example, pushing a false, debunked rumor about Haitian immigrants eating pets and dogs and cats and dogs in Ohio to draw media attention. Everybody remembers that. They're eating the cats and dogs. They're eating the pets, the Haitians. It was proven wrong pretty much immediately, but he stuck to it. He didn't apologize. He didn't let it go. He was ruthless about it. Critics say he's willing to use whatever it takes to drive his message, even if it means spreading unverified or inflammatory claims, just like with the cats and dogs, just like with the childless cat ladies. That part definitely turns people off. The point number 4, ideological extremism. Some view Vance as representing a hardline new right or national conservatism, socially very conservative, economically populist, skeptical of globalization, and focused on America First ideas. We know already he is definitely America First. He is not one for America being in helping out in NATO, Ukraine, or any other part of the world. America First is definitely true with him. Trump spoke about this, but he hasn't really practiced it. In fact, he's been the opposite of it. And in my view, I think JD Vance is going to be far more America First. His views on immigration are very restrictive, rooted both in cultural nationalism and economic populism. There is concern he may push for a much more centralized executive power, expanding the powers of the presidency. So you can see his ideas are more to the right than probably even Trump. Point number 5, inconsistency, opportunism. Some critics say he flip-flops. As a candidate, he criticized a major bipartisan infrastructure bill, but as a senator, he embraced money from that very bill for his own state. So he flip-flops, and we'll look at this flip-flop thing in the best way. So put a pin on that. And this kind of contradiction makes some voters feel he says one thing for votes, but does another thing when he is in office. Point number 6, women's issues and women problem. Polling shows he's particularly unpopular among women. His past language and views on childlessness and parenting contribute to this. Many women interpret his comments as dismissive or condescending, and definitely condescending. Most women report they feel like they're being talked down to when they hear his speeches. Lack of broad appeal. Even within his own party, his appeal is limited. As I said, he may have, he hooked up with Peter Thiel and some of the tech bros, and he changed. He completely changed from 2021 on. So he may or may not have appeal to the MAGA voters. They may want somebody else. But he will try to appeal to the real conservative voters. Some analysts argue that he was chosen more to appease or energize a particular faction rather than broaden the ticket's appeal. They needed somebody like him at the time to be a bit of an attack dog, and that's part of the reason why he was picked. He's a lawyer, well-spoken, very sharp, very knowledgeable. According to The Guardian, he may be more of a liability than an asset for the GOP because he's not helping to expand to swing or moderate voters. As I said before, basically, he turns a lot of people off. Point number 8, religious/cultural sensitivity concerns. Some of his personal remarks, for example, about his wife and religion, raise sensitivity. His wife is JD Vance, who's a Hindu. And in just some comments recently, he said he's hoping that she will change over to Catholicism, which is his religion. So that shows that he doesn't respect her religion, her parents, her heritage. He actually changed and became Catholic. He wasn't born a Catholic. He switched over to Catholic. Actually, he's changed his name 3 times. It's himself as well. So again, that comes up with inconsistency and opportunism. So those are some of the points that I think lead to his unpopularity among the general public. When you listen to him, most people, even his own supporters, will say they feel like he's very condescending, very speaks down to you all at every opportunity. He's not trying to, it's not like somebody who's trying to build consensus. It's not like somebody who's trying to build bridges. It doesn't feel like that. And that turns a lot of people off. So why these matter to normal voters? Why these factors matter to normal voters? Moderates and independents may be turned off by his extremism, perceived lack of empathy, or polarizing style. Women may especially dislike his comments around childlessness and traditional family roles. Educated voters might be concerned by both his ideological rigidity and his inconsistent approach to governance. Voters who dislike culture war politics may see him as someone who thrives on controversy rather than constructive policy. So in short, Vance's unpopularity isn't just about policy. It's also about his personality. I don't think he has one, to be honest. Rhetoric and style. Many see him as too provocative, too uncompromising, and not well suited to appeal broadly beyond his ideological base. Speaking of flip-flop, in February 2016, in a private message to a Yale law roommate, Vance reportedly said he went back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical a-hole like Nixon or that he's America's Hitler. So in 2016, he was calling Trump America's Hitler. In April of 2016, Vance wrote in the New York Times op-ed that Mr. Trump is unfit for our nation's highest office. In July of 2016, Vance compared Trump's appeal to a drug addiction, calling Trump a cultural heroin. So you can see he absolutely despised and hated Trump. In 2016, in August 2016, Vance said, "I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place." In October of 2016, after the Access Hollywood tape came out, Vance tweeted, which he has since deleted, "Fellow Christians, everyone is watching us when we apologize for this man. Lord help us." He's deleted that since then. Also in October 2016, he called Trump reprehensible. In another tweet, he said, "Trump makes people I care about afraid. Immigrants, Muslims, etc. Because of this, I find him reprehensible. God wants better of us." In October of 2016, he also said, "I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him." In 2017, Vance reportedly said in private that some Trump supporters were racist. Definitely some people who voted for Trump are racist, and they voted for him for racist reasons. In 2020, February, in a direct message, Vance wrote, "Trump has just so thoroughly failed to deliver on his economic populism, accepting a disjointed China policy." This is in 2020, only 5 years ago. In 2020 June, in a private message, he said he thought Trump would probably lose the 2020 election and joked he had turned down an appointment from the emperor. Now, the flip-flop part. In 2021, when asked about when he had flip-flopped and gone over to Trump's side and supported Trump, he said, "I regret being wrong about the guy. I think he was a good president." What the heck? In 2020 June, he was happy he turned down Trump. And then in 2021, he's saying, "Hey, I think he was a good president," after all the other examples that I've shown you that he said. So it definitely reeks of somebody who says and does what he can in order to have power. If he gets the Republican nomination in 2028, all these things will come out again. And I'm sure he'll have some glib and fast and smooth answers for that. And he likes to say, "Oh, I didn't know. Now that I gotten to know Trump, I respect him," but to change from calling somebody a Hitler to going to, well, he's the best president ever, that's a bit of a shift. So he'll have to explain all over again in a big way. Because if he's running for the president in 2028 and he gets nominated for the Republican nomination, then he will have to explain all of those comments. He's become part of this administration. So he will have to comment and explain all the failures of this administration. That includes tariffs, the immigration policy where, such horrific kidnappings and things are taking place, and everything else that is happening with this, the other big one being boats that are being bombed in the Caribbean and the Pacific. I think 21 boats have been bombed and about 83 people have been now killed. So he'll have to answer for that. He's part of this administration. I don't know at this time if how popular he will be with the public. All depends on who the Democrats have in 28 as their leader, as their nominee. Right? So if the Democrats have somebody sharp, somebody smart, somebody well-spoken with a good history, I don't think JD Vance is going to win. I don't think any of these Republicans that I had mentioned before will win, because the Republicans have done so much damage, not just to the United States, but to the entire world order, to trade, to their own MAGA supporters who are now suffering because of, grocery prices, whatever, energy prices, grocery prices, jobs, layoffs, you name it. They're suffering. MAGA knows. Everybody else already knows. So, Trump has horrific ratings. So everybody else knows, moderates and other people. They're not going to be voting for Republicans. So it's just the MAGA base. Anyway, maybe in the next podcast, I'll look at some of the other ones and see how serious they are and see if they have any chances of winning. In my personal view, if JD Vance is the nominee, I don't think he's going to win the election because he is part of a horrific administration, lawless administration, criminal administration, and it will be very hard for him to explain away all of those things. So thank you for being here with me. If you like what I've said, please make sure you put it in the comments. If you disagree with me, then please put it in the comments. Let's make it respectable. These are my views, and even MAGA is agreeing with these views now. Okay, so let's keep it respectable. Please like, please subscribe, and please share with your friends. It means a lot, and it helps out with the algorithms. It doesn't cost you anything. Thank you again for being here with me, and I'll see you next time.